We are going to be talking about building a review team with BookFunnel today. And I just kind of want to give you guys some expectations of what we're going to be going through. So first, an overview. We're going to talk first about setting some expectations, understanding what it means when you're building a list, right? What are some of the things that are you're going to have to navigate? We'll talk about how you can build an ARC team from scratch and some of the methods to do that, including BookFunnel. We are going to talk about some other tactics that you can use, because obviously there's some other things that you can do outside of BookFunnel. All right, so we'll acknowledge that. We're also going to talk about BookFunnel certified mail and some of the ways you can then distribute your ARCs, as well as talk about the security of ARC distribution. We're going to spend a little bit of time on that. And then we'll talk about managing your ARC team or review team. And today, folks, I will use ARC team or review team kind of interchangeably today. I recognize that there is technically a distinction between those two. But understand if I use them interchangeably, whichever one applies to you. We will also touch on some best practices, and then at the end we'll have some time for Q&A. So if you have questions, please go ahead and drop those into the Zoom chat. You can just put your questions in there. Emma is also here with me today. She's one of our author support specialists as well, and she will be in the chat with y'all to answer some of your questions in some cases, or mark them for the Q&A portion. If she marks your question with a star, that means we will get to that question for sure in the Q&A, and it's kind of open-ended. We'll leave some time for that at the end here to make sure we can get through most all of those questions. If you can't stick around for the entirety of today's session or the call, maybe perhaps the Q&A goes a little long for you and you have to duck out, that's totally fine. A replay link for this webinar will be sent to all participants tomorrow. That will include the entire call. So you'll have all the information there. So don't worry about that. You can go back and rewatch it again and go over the information, go over the Q&A again if you need to, and that's totally fine. So I think that gets everything out of the way here before we jump in. So again, if you have questions that come up at any point, you can put those in the chat throughout the presentation here. And then we might even have the opportunity to look directly at some things on the BookFunnel dashboard as well when we get to that Q&A section. So if some of you want to see some things on the dashboard or have questions about how it would look once you're on the dashboard, go ahead and let me know, and we can get to that in the Q&A segment. So before we dive in, let's set some expectations for your results, right? Anybody who has built an ARC team or a review team in the past has probably learned this the hard way, or how do you want to say, learned it already by experience. But maybe this is the first time you're looking to build a review team or an ARC team. And so we want to set expectations because we can kind of look at this topic with rose-tinted glasses and go into it with really high hopes, and that can unfortunately lead to some discouragement later on. So I want to be clear about what you should expect when you are building a review team or an ARC team or what have you. So first of all, you may get quite a few readers who will express interest and agree to review your book. However, many of them will not follow through. This is the big one. This is the one that we hear from authors regularly about this. I have 20 readers who said they would review my book. I sent them a review copy and they're not reviewing it. Right? What can I do? Well, this is normal. I want you to understand that first of all. This is normal. It's a numbers game. So not everybody who agrees to review a book is going to actually follow through and review it. And I'm not trying to knock readers here or somehow throw them under the bus. Not all of those readers are trying to just take advantage of you. Life happens, guys, right? And obviously their agreement to review your book is not, some legally binding contract or anything like that. I'm not a lawyer. That's not legal advice, but just know that that's going to happen, right? It's going to be typically a minority of those readers that actually wind up reviewing your book. Now, you can improve your odds by sending reminders and follow-ups, which BookFunnel does allow you to do with BookFunnel certified mail, and by reaching out in other ways. But there are no guarantees. So don't expect that you're going to get a certain conversion rate every time. Each group of readers is going to be different. Maybe if you had a very large group of readers, and depending on where you found them from and where they discovered you, perhaps maybe you would find some reliable numbers at a certain volume. But in general, if you're looking just at a small group of readers, a relatively small group of readers, there's no guarantee about what you're going to get. So obviously, you're going to want to communicate with them and stay in touch with them throughout the length of the campaign, so to speak, right? The time from when they receive their review copy and when they're supposed to leave their review, right? It's up to you how much effort you want to put in to managing your review team and what feels right for you. So there is no one way to manage an ARC team or review team. Everybody kind of has their own style, and I think this is important. Your style of managing a review team may be different than somebody else's. You may have heard advice from authors that are very strict with their review team, and perhaps they have them go through a 20-question survey before they can get the review copy, and they check in with them every week, and maybe even some other hoops they have them jump through. But maybe that's just not a good fit for you. Right? Maybe your style is more, you get some readers who agree to review your book, you give them the book, and you just kind of do it more casually, and you get what you get at the end. Or maybe you do want to have more control over who gets those review copies, and maybe your team is really a more tight-knit group that is more accountable. Right? So there's no one way to do it. You don't feel like you have to do it any one certain way. Obviously, if there's certain results you want to get, you may want to adjust for that. But if there's a certain way that you want to do it, feel free to do that. Right? Just understand that obviously, I think the biggest thing here is it's a numbers game. Right? At the end of the day, it really is a numbers game. So if you're building a review team from scratch, here are some of the fundamentals, right? And the most basic points that I think you need to know in terms of ways to do that. First of all, you want to use your existing mailing list if you haven't already. You want to recruit ARC or review team members directly from your list. These are people who are subscribed to you. They open your weekly, monthly newsletter. Perhaps the ones that are most engaged, right, are probably going to be the best candidates. Right? They're on your list for a reason. Right? They probably, in most cases, they're there because they got a reader magnet of yours. And so that makes them already kind of pre-qualified. So this is the first group that you should be looking to when you're looking to find reviewers, right? Whether they're ARC team or just regular review team members, right? A call to action is something that you should do regularly. If you have an existing list, just letting them know that you're looking to build a review team. It's simple, right? But it's important. And to do this regularly, I think would also be the important point. This is not something that it's not a one and done type of scenario, right? You're not just going to put it out there once, get all the readers to sign up that you need, and they'll all review the book and you're golden, right? No, this is a process that has to be repeated over time. You want to keep it simple. And I think that's what I'm trying to get at here. Utilizing passive strategies to get a steady flow of new reviewers is really effective. I think the one that everybody knows is just asking for a review in the back matter of your book. That's like one of the simplest and most effective things that you can do. That's just really passive. You don't have to go out there and put a lot of work into it. You just add that to the end of your book in the back matter, right? But there's other things that you can do along this line. And to give a personal example, I have a survey that I include in almost every newsletter that I send to my readers that just asks them to rate my first book on a scale of 1 to 5 stars. That's it. That's all it does. And if they rate it highly, I follow up with them and say, hey, I'm glad you really enjoyed it. Would you mind leaving a review? And I have that as an automation sequence, actually. So it's passive, right? There's other passive things you might be able to think of, right? That are simple and just kind of work on their own. And of course, BookFunnel promos and swaps. This is a great way to build your list. Right? And starting there, if maybe you don't have a list, right? So for those of you who are starting from scratch in more ways than one, BookFunnel promos in particular are a good way for you to build your list. And a lot of the readers in that are in these BookFunnel promos uh, are readers who are familiar with other authors. They're often on the mailing lists of other authors in your genre. And so they're familiar with kind of how it works. And so there are many of them who will also be familiar with being part of an author's review team. So they're already kind of pre-qualified in that sense as well when they come from BookFunnel. They're going to kind of expect that because if they're in the BookFunnel ecosystem, right, in BookFunnel promos and swaps, they're getting regular newsletters from other authors who are sharing BookFunnel promos and swaps and also asking them to review their books. Those readers are going to be also sort of inclined to a greater degree to agree to review your book and actually follow through as well. So sometimes one thing that we hear from authors is that the readers in BookFunnel promos are, I think the label that gets used a lot is like a freebie seeker. And that's a label I personally don't like because well, there's a number of reasons why I don't like it. But in this context, I think the way to think of it is that these readers are looking for something, right? There's a reason why they're looking for free books in particular. They're probably voracious readers. They read a lot and they're looking for something new all the time. And they're looking to find new authors. And that's an opportunity for you. And when we're talking about reviews, especially, this is an opportunity for you because what reader, again, this reader is probably going to be interested in your genre, interested in your subgenre or niche, excuse me, and again, predisposed and familiar with these types of activities. They know because they've probably been asked by other authors to review their books, and probably some of them may have. So that's something to keep in mind when you're building a team from BookFunnel promos or swaps. Whereas to give you kind of the opposite example, perhaps you're also building your newsletter by running an ad that's pointed at your reader magnet. And let's say you're pointing a Facebook ad to your reader magnet and growing your mailing list that way. Those readers who join your list that way may be less familiar. You may be the first author whose mailing list they've ever signed up for. Maybe not, but it's quite possible. And so some of those readers they're just going to kind of be getting their feet wet. They don't know what a review team is. They don't know what an ARC is. They might not be familiar with that terminology. And so where those readers come from on your mailing list does matter. Right? Now, BookFunnel Certified Mail is our dedicated ARC delivery feature. And so once you've gotten your team, and whether it's a small team or a large team, whatever it happens to be, you've got to deliver your review copy. You've got to deliver the book. So BookFunnel Certified Mail is our dedicated feature for that. Right? It allows you to send unique links to a list of readers. Each reader gets their own download link, and these are private links. We'll talk a little bit more in detail here in just a little bit about the security of those links, but they are intended just for that one person, for that one reader. You can schedule reminders and follow-ups. So these are additional emails that will go out. In total, there will be 3 emails that they would receive. If you send a campaign with a reminder and a follow-up, they'll receive that initial email with the link. The reminder will go out halfway through the campaign, and then the follow-up will be sent out after the campaign has ended. Typically, the follow-up is used to deliver them the review instructions where they're supposed to go to leave their review. So it'll kind of ensure that that information gets to them. It also allows you to track downloads. You're able to see who has viewed the download page and who has downloaded your ARC or review book, review copy. And there is progress tracking available if they are reading in the BookFunnel cloud. So not everybody will be doing that, right? But you can see how far they are through the book in some cases. And then as far as convenience is concerned, scheduling your campaign and reminder emails and follow-ups can all be done in advance. Right? So you can do this up front, or you can send them out immediately, depending on what your style is. Right? You can also add readers to a campaign that is already active. So if you sent out a campaign and then some more readers, volunteer and you want to add them really quickly, you can easily add them to an existing campaign or duplicate previous ones that you've sent out. So it is very convenient and easy in that respect. And your readers rather get a direct line to support. The emails that they received are delivered from BookFunnel, and so if they have trouble, all they have to do is reply to that email, and we're there to help them. As far as security, because this is one question that authors do have when it comes to ARC copies or review copies, all of the ebook files that are delivered through certified mail have hidden watermarks applied to them. And these hidden watermarks include data from that reader, right, specifically, that is added to the book's code. It is not visible. It doesn't show up over the page like a traditional watermark would, but it is there, and it can be detected in the file's code. Visible watermarks and PDF stamps are optional. You can add that if you so choose. A visible watermark in an EPUB or MOBI file will show up as a bit of text that will show up at the end of a section of the book. So you can add it in one place in the book or multiple places. And typically it will say something like, this book was prepared for email, right? It'll put their email in there, their actual email. So the copy that they receive is actually unique to them. And this will deter some casual file sharing. They know if they see their email in there and they share that file, they're kind of outing themselves in a way, right? Because that information is in there. And similarly, PDF stamps. When we stamp a PDF, the reader's email is added to the bottom left-hand corner of each page of the PDF. So a very similar kind of thing. In addition to that, the links that they receive are limited by IP address. So what this means, right? Each individual, right, who is accessing the internet has an IP address, and that IP address is unique to them. BookFunnel tracks the IP addresses that access private links. Certified mail links are private links, and private links are allowed to be accessed by 2 IP addresses. This allows your readers to access a book at home and at work. So it gives them a little flexibility, which is why it's not just one, right? And after that, if they were to, for example, share that link or try to share it far and wide, that link would quickly become a dead link once that third IP address accessed the book, right? So this prevents them from just sharing the link out there. Obviously, they can still do that. They can copy and paste any link. It's just the way the internet works. But the link, once it's been accessed by more than 2 IP addresses, will expire and will no longer allow downloads. Right? There are some other ways for you to distribute ARCs with BookFunnel, though, or review copies, again, to use those interchangeably. So book gifting is pretty simple, especially if you have maybe reviewers who kind of just come up one at a time. Maybe you're not sending them to a large group of readers. You can just send one book to one reader securely. It's basically the same as certified mail without the follow-up and reminder emails, and you're only sending it to one reader. right? So it's a quick way to send a review copy to a reader. A bulk delivery is another one of our features. It's kind of a new feature, but really it's over a year old at this point. It's been around for a little while, but not everybody is necessarily familiar with it. Bulk delivery will add books to the BookFunnel libraries of a group of readers rather than sending them a private link by email. So instead of getting a link, they have to log into their BookFunnel library to access the book. And this is great if you have a review team that is larger than 500 readers. Certified mail, of course, is limited to about 500 readers per month. You can send 500 emails per month on most account levels. So if you have a team that's larger than that, bulk delivery is best for that. Bulk delivery, we do, by default, it's set to a limit of 500, but as long as your account is in good standing, you can request unlimited bulk deliveries just by emailing support, and that would let you send a bulk delivery to 1,000 or 2,000 or what have you, a very large group of readers. Right. So for that reason, it is ideal. The one difference here is that BookFunnel is not sending any emails to those readers, so that's on you, right, to do all of that. But you should probably be doing that to some degree anyway, even if you're using certified mail. And then restricted pages. So restricted pages uh, uh, basically limit downloads. It's a landing page that limits downloads to subscribers that are on your list or on a specific list with your mailing list service. This allows you to just send readers one link to a single page where they can go and claim the book, right, if they're on that list. If they're not, you have a couple options. Either the page can just tell them, sorry, you're not on this list, you can't get this book, right? Or it can actually redirect them somewhere else. So in this context, you can also kind of use it as a recruitment tool. So let's say maybe you have a survey that review team members have to fill out before they join your team, and you send out a restricted page link in your newsletter for access to the review copy. Someone who's not part of the team and not on the list for that page goes to try to access it. And when they obviously don't pass verification, they instead get redirected and sent, hey, go here instead. And you could redirect them to your survey or where they can submit their details to join your team, right? So you could do something like that with restricted pages. So for that reason, it is kind of an interesting little tool if that's what you want to use it for. Right. Now, how secure is it? We talked a little bit about security with certified mail, right? And so a couple things that I should mention here, and I want to be very frank with everybody on. So I don't want to startle you with some of the things I'm about to say, right? But we're going to be talking about piracy. The reality is, when you distribute books online, they will inevitably be shared. That's something that I think everybody kind of has to accept at some point in time. If you're sharing books on and distributing them online, this is going to happen, right? There is a difference between casual file sharing and full-fledged piracy, though. And so this is something that you should understand. If you're sending out an ARC or a review copy to someone and they share it with their friend, and they share it with a family member, that's a little different than the type of piracy that also happens online. And what we have seen from our years in the industry is that the air quotes professional pirates are typically targeting books on Amazon, specifically books that are in Kindle Unlimited, right? Books that they can get easily and get access to files, strip them of DRM, and do whatever they want with them. In addition to that, most pirates are not actually trying to make money off of selling your book. They're identity thieves, and they are trying to get people's secure identity information, their credit card information, their personal details. And that book, your book, is just a vehicle to do that. It's unlikely for most authors that they're trying to take your book and turn around and make, millions of dollars off of it instead of you. That's not usually the case. Right? So in most cases, they're using your book as a tool to get someone's personal information. And most of the time, they're going to do that by finding a book on Amazon that they can get access to, right? Because think of it, they'd have to join your review team, go through all the steps, go through all the processes involved that you might have there for them to join the team. And that's a whole lot more complicated than just scraping books off of Amazon, right, if you will, which can be done by bots and that sort of thing. Right? And in fact, the hidden watermarks that we mentioned just a little bit ago that we do add to ebooks and EPUB and Mobi files, I should say. In the 8 years of BookFunnel, we have only detected a hidden watermark of that kind in a pirated file twice. Authors will frequently come to us when their book has been pirated and they ask us to check and see if it's there, and we'll do it. We do it every week, right? We have authors come to us, multiple authors usually. Emma, I'm sure you can you can attest to that, all right? Because they come right through our author support queue, and only twice in the 8 years of BookFunnel has it turned out that the original file came from a reader who got it through BookFunnel, right? And this is perhaps an important point to make for some, but hopefully you already understand this. There is nothing, and I mean literally nothing, that can stop a dedicated pirate. If someone wants to pirate your book, they can find a way to do it. That being said, this is not most readers. Right? This is just an important conversation for us to have and important for you to understand, especially when it comes to your review team. If somebody wants to pirate your book, they will find a way to do it. Right? You might say, well, there's the watermark in the file. Okay, well, that might not deter them. Well, with BookFunnel, you can also restrict your books so they can only be read in the BookFunnel Cloud Reader or the BookFunnel app. And to that, I would say there are screenshots. And that sounds crazy, but if they really wanted to pirate your book, they could go through all those steps, right? So the sooner we come to terms with this, the better, right? That being said, now that we've got the scary part out of the way, there are tools that you have to mitigate these risks. Private links, like I mentioned, these expire and are limited by IP address. All private links are only active for 14 days. They can be renewed. So if a reader needs it to be renewed, they can contact us and have it renewed, and we'll do that for them. Not a problem at all. But there's a reason why they expire within 14 days. And that way, the purpose of that is so that some crafty folks online may realize, oh, BookFunnel, they have these books that are available for free through these private links. But I know what the base URL is, and then the code is just kind of randomized letters. You just create a spreadsheet with random letters at the end and go to every single one of those links, and you can download all the books on them. And if those private links, if those pages were active indefinitely, people would be able to do that. And so that's why we have a 14-day expiration. It's for security. It means that somebody can't come back 2 years later and just by scraping links and so forth off the internet to find and get a book that was never theirs in the first place. We also talked about the IP address limit, and again, that applies to all private links. Visible watermarks, we talked about, that acts, again, as a deterrent for casual sharing, the book being marked with their own email. And then restricted books. I think we touched on this just a moment ago. I didn't talk about it so much earlier, but restricted books allow you to limit the book to the BookFunnel Cloud Reader and app. And this is going to deter the vast majority of casual file sharing and piracy. Like I did say, yeah, they could take screenshots of the book they could do that. I don't think many readers would, right? But it's still technically possible, and so that's why I want to say that it's a thing that could happen, but I don't think that it's likely. Perhaps with illustrated books, it might be more common, and that's something you'd want to consider. But with restricted books, when your books are restricted to the BookFunnel Cloud Reader or app, readers don't have access to the files, so they can't download them or email them to themselves. They can only read them in those settings, right? Now let's talk about managing your ARC team. So you built the team, you sent them the book. You put all the steps in place that you felt comfortable with. And really, when we're talking about security, some authors are going to feel secure with the maximum number of protocols in place, and some with none of that. So it's kind of up to you. But now you've sent the ARC and they've got it. What do you do now? Okay, well, set expectations for your readers up front. I think this is important. They need to know what they're signing up for. What are they getting themselves into? All right. How strict are you going to be with requirements? I think that's best to communicate as much of that as possible up front, right? So that they know what to expect. Regardless of your management style, whether or not you're kind of more loosey-goosey, right? Or you're very strict, right? Communicate clearly when and where they are supposed to write their review. Right? Obviously, with some flexibility. Right? One place where this comes up, if you are asking for reviews on a specific platform like Amazon, some readers may agree to review your book without realizing that Amazon actually requires that in order to write reviews on their platform, you need to have spent $50 at least on Amazon in the last year. So some folks just don't use Amazon, and they sign up to review your book, and then they go to review it and they realize, oh shoot, I can't, because they just don't shop on Amazon. Right? And so that's where places like Goodreads and so forth are good alternatives for readers who maybe can't review directly on Amazon. That will come up, right? So have that all communicated in advance, right? In terms of getting the best results out of everything. And then you want to prune your list carefully, right? Because you want the right readers on your team for future releases. And so for this reason, you may want to prioritize the readers who followed through that first time around. That might be your style. You might be kind of more like the more the merrier, right? And you're not necessarily going to cut people from the group if they didn't review. That's fine. It's up to you. However you want to manage it. But either way, you probably will need to do some pruning every now and then. It's very much like managing a mailing list. If you're sending emails to someone who's never opening them, chances are you should probably remove them from your mailing list. Likewise, if you're managing an ARC team or a review team, and someone's not engaging, they're not opening the emails, they're not communicating, probably best to remove them just in case. Right? This is obviously good for like your spam rating, that sort of thing. You don't want somebody to get an email that to them appears to be out of the blue, even though you've been emailing them once a week for the last year, and then they mark you as spam because they can't remember where this came from, right? So there's some other things to keep in mind there, but it's up to you. I personally, what I'll do, book one, pretty much I'll let anybody have a review copy and review it, and then for those who have reviewed it, I will sometimes give them access to book two. This is not as a reward for doing that. I do it kind of occasionally, but that is the group that I would look to first, right? So a few best practices here to kind of wrap things up, some things for you to think about, and then we'll get into the Q&A here in just a little bit. So if you do have questions that you've thought of, go ahead and drop those in there now. That way we're ready to jump into those questions here once we wrap things up. So never buy lists of readers. I have to say this, it has to be mentioned. There are lists out there that you can buy. There's ways to do it. Don't do it. Just don't. We've seen it personally, where authors have bought lists and have sent out emails to those lists using certified mail. It's first of all, if you're using BookFunnel certified mail, the expectation that we have is that those readers that you're sending those emails to, they are subscribers to your mailing list and you have vetted them, meaning that they're expecting to receive this review copy. And you know that again, these aren't just people that you just added to your list from somewhere or acquired from somewhere. They are expecting to receive this review copy. Because what happens is when BookFunnel sends that email and it gets marked as spam, that dings BookFunnel, not you directly. So it is something that we do require if you're going to be using certified mail. Right. I would only send ARCs or review copies to readers who agreed to receive them, even if they are subscribers. We'll see this sometimes too, where authors will just take their whole mailing list and they will send them all a review copy. With certified mail, this can sometimes be done because some account levels do have a higher limit, or I guess it's not necessarily by account level, but accounts with have a good history of sending certified mail can get a higher level and send more emails per month. And then sometimes what we see is they send it to their entire mailing list, and it's kind of discouraging. So uh, in that case, we get a lot of readers who are confused and they're contacting BookFunnel support like, I didn't ask for this book. Why did I get it? They're confused, and it doesn't work the way you might think, right? If that's a strategy that you're considering, so I would avoid that, right? Paying for reviews rarely pays, right? Uh, I recommend sticking to the grind as your primary way of getting reviews, which is building the review team, having systems in place that will bring in new reviewers on a regular basis, get you new reviews. And you know, it's not to say that there's no room for it. There are some paid options out there that can be useful. I'm not saying that you can't look into those at all. Like there are some paid review services where you pay them a fee to get a an honest review. Obviously, I would avoid services that are sneaky. How do I want to say? Kind of not necessarily scammy on this in the sense that they're going to scam you, although that is a possibility if they're doing something that's illegitimate. Oftentimes, if they're willing to break Amazon's rules, they're probably likely to scam you too. So keep that in mind. But there are folks out there who will do that for money, and I would avoid that at all costs. It might seem like the easy solution, right? But that's really what you should avoid. Certain legitimate paid services can be part of your strategy to get reviews, but I wouldn't make it the main focus, right? And do not attempt in any way to influence reviews. Right? So there should be no direct communication with those readers that says, make sure you leave me a 5-star review, or if you leave me a 5-star review, I'll give you the second book, or this, that, or the other, or if you give me a 5-star review, I'll pay you money, or none of that stuff, right? First of all, not permitted by Amazon or other uh, big retailers, that sort of thing. They don't allow it. Right. Obviously, maybe a little harder for them to police. So you might think that, hey, you never know. Right. But I do not recommend it. It also just does not come off the way that you think it will to most readers who kind of already understand that. You should be asking for honest reviews. And in all honesty, some of my favorite, really some of my best reviews that I've received personally for my books are my 3-star reviews, and they're almost better at selling my book than my 5-star reviews. I don't know if any of you all have noticed this either, because when somebody leaves a 3-star review, they're being critical, sure. In some cases, maybe they're not providing a whole lot of feedback, but usually they're explaining the reason why they didn't like the book. And so they might go into the review and say, I didn't like the book because it had this in it. And somebody else is going to read that review and be like, well, that's what I like. I like that. So it's probably a book I'm going to like. So if somebody's giving you an honest review and saying, I didn't like this about the book, or there's this thing about it that I didn't like, and obviously it's not something that, is just basic, right? Like if they're saying, well, there were a whole bunch of formatting issues and spelling mistakes. Well, okay. You can fix that. But if they're saying that it just wasn't their kind of book, right? Then that's actually not necessarily a bad thing. It's communicating to other readers who come along. Okay, this is actually what is included in the content of the book. This is what the book is like, and maybe that thing that that reviewer didn't like is something that they do. Right. So, for example, my books have a lot of action in them. And some readers like more of a slower pace, a slow burn, if you will. That's in some of my reviews. There's just lots of action. There was lots of conflict going on. Some readers want that. That's what they want. They want more of a high action sort of book. Right? And that's just what I happen to write. And I'm not going to change that about my writing just to appease those 3-star reviewers, but don't be afraid of those honest reviews, I guess is what I'm trying to say, right? Uh, the first time you get a 1-star review is the day you should celebrate, right? You should celebrate it. You have arrived, as it were, right? Obviously, you know, you want to listen to some of that feedback, but don't be afraid of honest reviews. And so don't make any attempts to influence them. All right. So we have time for questions here. We should have, we got about 15 minutes here before the top of the hour, but we can go beyond that too if there are some more questions to get through. So Emma, what questions do they have for me today? What do we have going on here?
All right. So regarding follow-through percentages, Angie asks, is it about half of those who agree to actually do the review?
Ooh, I
Yeah.
would hesitate to say. Emma, what would you say, Emma, in your experience?
I would say 50% I would be ecstatic.
Yeah,
But
that's what I
my
would say. I was,
style though is more, I have maybe 50 to 100 core readers who over the years I know they'll eventually get around to reviewing, and I just
yeah,
give them the link and walk away.
right,
Yes. But that's
right,
my yeah.
right. Yeah, I would say 50% would be optimistic. If you have a very uh, closely managed group that, again, maybe, and so in this case, we're talking about smaller numbers here too, because it's much harder to strictly manage a group of 100 readers than it is, say, 5. So if you have a group of 5 readers who you're communicating with, um, in a very, I don't know, maybe you have them in a Facebook group and you're communicating with them daily and keeping them accountable and so forth and checking in with them, you probably see a better percentage, right, of them. But to say, I can't say that it would be half in all cases. You're going to see you'll also see it vary from one group to the next. So, and it can also vary from genre to genre. So it's hard to give a hard and fast number in that regard. There are obviously things that I think the way to look at it is there's some things that you can do to help increase your results. And that's mainly things like if you're sending them a certified mail campaign, I would also send them an email through either directly, right? If you're depending on how many readers we're talking about here, or at the very least through your mailing list service to give them sort of a heads up, like, hey, I sent you this review copy from BookFunnel. You can go find it in your inbox. Let me know if you have trouble getting it, that sort of thing. Because sometimes the BookFunnel certified mail emails do get filtered out of people's primary inboxes, things like that. So that's worth noting. They might not see it. And then the reminder and the follow-up emails are good to send as well, which again just guarantees that they didn't forget about it. And or if they forgot about it, it was deliberate and they didn't, okay, that's just what they're gonna do. Or and then also to give them those review instructions at the end when they're ready. Um, so I would look at it from that angle rather than worrying about a specific percentage or something like that. Just think of what are the steps along the way that is going to maximize the number of reviews you're going to get without um, without worrying too much about what the final number is going to be. So that's my perspective anyway. So yeah, what do we have next?
Under reminders and follow-ups, are these automatic through BookFunnel or through our email provider? And
Yeah,
is there a limit to the certified mail links? And I think
yeah. Yeah. So the reminders and follow-ups can be sent through BookFunnel with a certified mail campaign. So with certified mail, that is one of the options. So you're sending 3 emails through BookFunnel, the initial email with the link, the reminder that's halfway through the campaign, and then the follow-up email, which happens after the campaign has ended. And the limit to certify, I guess the question also, is there a limit to the certified mail links? I guess I'm not, if you could clarify what you mean by that, uh, in terms of the download links themselves, they are limited as private links, or do you mean the number of links? Because 500 is the standard limit for most accounts. You can send 500 certified mail emails to readers per month. That would be 500 unique links. But uh, but yeah, maybe you were asking about something else though. Feel free to clarify that in the chat as well.
all right. Talking about watermarks, Cindy asks, should we be advising team readers that their book has been watermarked?
Yeah, good question. So should you let readers know that your book files are watermarked? Well, it's kind of up to you. Uh, by all means, you can. I would keep it simple if you're going to do that. Just give them a heads up. Hey, just so you know, the file you received is watermarked with your email, is what I would tell them. And leave it at that, right? I wouldn't go into a whole spiel about, file sharing and piracy because that can kind of come off a little, um, like you're being a little suspicious of them. You don't really trust them. And so you're right, which may not be what you want to communicate to those readers in that context. So it could be worth just including a little disclaimer, but that's up to you whether or not you want to include that. So, but most readers are going to be honest, and that's what we find. If they want to review your book and get a review copy, they want to get a review copy. They're not usually thinking that way. Um, although it's understandable for authors to be worried about that, but most readers are not thinking of that when they're getting your book. I do also have a couple direct messages here, so these aren't in the main chat. And just so everybody knows, if you do send me a direct message, I might miss it. So um, going through the meeting chat here, so best to comment in the group chat, but that's fine. So question here, how does certified mail watermark and IP address work with an audiobook? This is a good question. So audiobooks do not have any kind of watermarking on them. So there are, whether they're sent through certified mail or otherwise. So that sort of thing is not applied to them. IP address limiting works the same, right? It's still a private link. And so that link will still expire if more than 2 IP addresses access the link. That's the same for audiobooks as it is for ebooks. And otherwise, the main method of security that most authors will use for audiobooks on BookFunnel is restricting the audiobook to the BookFunnel app or Cloud Player. And so that way they can't download the MP3 files directly. But the MP3 files that they download, if you make that option available to them, those aren't marked with DRM or anything of that sort. Which really, if they were, it would make it pretty much impossible for them to listen to those files anywhere. So, or make it very difficult for them, for the average listener. We don't apply it for that reason. So there's also a question here. Again, this is another direct message. Is there a website plugin you can suggest that allows readers, ARC team members to leave reviews direct on an author's website? So this is a good one. I don't have a specific plugin that comes to mind, but I know that if you are doing direct sales, or maybe you just want to have reviews posted on your website, there are plenty of ways to do that. I'm sure there are for most major website building platforms. And if you're doing direct sales, many of those sales platforms also have, if not a built-in way for customers to write a review and leave a review. If not that, then other plugins and that sort of thing. I don't have any off the top of my head that I can mention, but I'm sure they do exist. In fact, I know they do exist. Um, so that's very useful. Another thing to keep in mind, if maybe you're not primarily focused on direct sales, but you do want to have some reviews of your books posted on your website or to use them for marketing purposes, you're actually free to do that. You can take those reviews. I don't usually recommend like sharing the person's full name in that context. Maybe their first name or maybe their initials. But you can just take those reviews and use them for marketing purposes as well, provided you're not, um, you know, what am I trying to say here? Um, violating somebody's privacy, right? By sharing their full name, right, somewhere that they might not have agreed to. But yeah, you can use that for marketing purposes. So if you just wanted them posted on your website, maybe it's not that you want them to submit reviews in a typical fashion. That's something you can do as well. So, all right, Emma, what's the next one that you've
All right.
got for me?
Regarding private links, is the 14-day link extendable at the time we set it up, say for 30 days, or do we need to extend the link for those who ask for it?
Okay, let me see. Oh, hmm. I'm looking for that one in the chat. Was that a direct message? Hey, where did it go? I am not seeing that one in here. All right. Can you tell me the question again? Sorry. I like to read them as you say them usually. I can't find it.
Actually, let me repost it. I can just copy and repost it real quick, so you can read it. There we go. Oh, yeah, it worked. Okay.
Okay. There we go. Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Sorry about that, folks. I like to read the questions in the chat so I fully understand them. And I was looking for it while Emma was reading it and I couldn't find it. So okay. Is the 14-day extendable at the time we set up? Said no. Well, okay. So good question, right? So at the you do have a little bit of control with certified mail to change that 14-day window, but 14 days is the maximum. So you would not be able to extend it for 30 days. However, that being said, individual readers can ask to have the link extended. And I believe you can also resend the link right from your campaign dashboard. So that's something you can do. But they also have access to it through their BookFunnel library. And that's kind of the best long-term way for them to access the book beyond that 14 days is through their BookFunnel library. So when you send a reader a certified mail campaign, that email, uh, or I guess that book rather, gets added to their BookFunnel library automatically. So it's in their library waiting for them, and then they can download it from there after that 14 days by logging in. And if they don't have a BookFunnel library, when you send them a certified mail, a book through certified mail, their library is automatically created for them. The only thing they have to do is create a password, and that's really easy the first time they log in. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Not a whole lot of hoops for readers to jump through in order to access their library. We made that as simple and straightforward as possible. So, all right. What's the next one here?
All right. The next couple of questions are around review requirements.
Yeah.
Ram says it's interesting about the $50 spend limit. Um,
Mhm.
Goodreads was mentioned as an alternative. Any other suggestions?
Yeah. So
And to
I know
follow up on that, Cindy asked, should we have them send the reviews direct to us? Is that a thing?
that can be a thing. I know some um some authors will ask for that, either as like sending you the link to where they posted the review, or just providing you with the review is kind of a nice thing to do sometimes, I suppose. But generally, most authors, I think, are going to want to have a link to where the review was posted, if nothing else. Obviously, you don't want to ask them to send you the review ahead of time so that you can, you know, gatekeep it or edit it in any way. Um, excuse me, but it can be done. So, and I think Kathy just mentioned here, right? If reviewers have a blog, you can add a quote from a review to your Amazon editorial reviews section. Interesting, right? So if some of those readers have a blog where they post reviews, right, that's what that can be used. I know BookBub also hosts reviews, don't they, Emma? Am I right? That's not something I'm personally familiar with. Do you know of any other alternatives to Goodreads? Because I know Goodreads a little controversial, right? Uh, but I don't know. What other alternatives do you know of?
Amazon, Goodreads, BookBub. It might also be a good idea to provide readers with maybe a media kit of graphics and ask them to post their
Mhm.
review on their social media channels
Yeah,
and especially on
yeah,
places like Instagram where they can share their stories.
yep, yep. I would say that yeah, those are going to be the main ones though. Amazon, Goodreads, BookBub, or obviously, other online stores if your books are wide. Um, but those would be the main ones. And I think somebody did mention BookBub
Yeah.
as as well in one of the comments. So
And Elaine asks, she says, I'm writing a sequel right now. How will I handle that with the review team? Is it appropriate to ask them to read book one first? There was no review team for that first book.
yeah, I would like personally I would say so. Yeah, if you're writing a series, I would want someone to have read the first book before they reviewed the second one, just so that there's no like just so there's nothing in a review where a reader's like, this thing happened, I didn't understand it, or I was lost. I had no idea what was going on because they didn't read book one. So, yeah, to avoid that, I would say making that a requirement's probably a good idea if you are, um, you know, recruiting reviewers for a sequel. Like I said, that's why I tend to recruit those readers from those who have already left a review. That can be a little tricky to do in some cases. And again, I want to be clear, I'm not recruiting them as sort of a reward for leaving that first review. It's more just hey, you left one, so you're likely to leave one again, right? That sort of thing, right? And I don't base it on how good their review was either. Obviously, if somebody leaves me a 1-star review, they're probably not going to want to read book two. So that's important as well. I do have another direct message here from someone with a question. Someone recommended puppy.com to get reviews. The idea is I purchase an author's book and leave a review, and the author purchases my book to leave a review. What's your opinion? So for those of you who aren't familiar with Puppy, the way Puppy works, um, it is legitimate. I do want to preface that. However, there are some ways that you can get into a little uh, I don't want to say trouble, but there are some things you can run into depending on how you use it. So you can kind of fly a little too close to the sun. Um, so Pubby allows authors to post their book for review and require that the reviewers actually purchase the book in some cases. And it allows users to also find books and review them. And they have a system where you earn points by reviewing books, right? So if you claim a book to review it, you earn points, and then you can spend those points to have your book put up for review, right? So the idea is that you have to review other authors' books. Typically, it's other authors using the service. in order to have your book reviewed, and your book will be reviewed by the other authors on the site. Right. So there are some potential um, pitfalls with this sort of thing when it comes to Puppy. The main one that I've heard of and seen is that if you're writing in a specific genre, say romance, and you also like to read romance, so you're reading and reviewing books on Puppy that are in your same genre, and you happen to be reading and reviewing them under the same Amazon account that your books are under, a couple things can happen. For starters, if you're using your own name in your reviews, that's one thing. But if two accounts review each other's books on Amazon, Amazon sees that as, you arranged this probably, and those reviews often get removed. It can also sometimes get you into hot water. Uh, Although if it happened on a one-off, I don't think Amazon would be too concerned. But if it kept happening, it could be a problem. So uh, it's something I did tinker with it myself. I just wanted because authors have asked about it. I wanted to know, like, how did it work? And it does work. You can get reviews from it. It's pretty simple. I would say I wouldn't tend to. There's some people out there who have a very negative opinion on it. I'm more neutral. Depends on how you use it. I don't think it's a good fit for everybody, but it can be useful in some cases if you're just looking for kind of a simplified solution. I don't think it's going to produce you the best reviews possible. I think you're going to get the best reviews from people who have actually probably read your book thoroughly as an interested reader and left an honest review. I think Pubby can get you a more of a quantity of reviews, but the quality is probably much less so, is what I would say. So, but it is a legitimate service. I do want to point that out. We talked about paid reviews earlier, and generally, I do agree that they're to be kind of avoided as your primary focus. But Pubby is legitimate. What the way they run things is not, it's not some sort of. I know some people have a very negative opinion of the site. That's fine. But it is a legitimate service what they're doing. Some authors just get into trouble with the way they use it, I think, is kind of what happens. So yeah, good question. All righty. What do we got next? Are there,
Uh,
are there some more questions here?
yeah, Jennifer asks, how many ARC signups for a debut novel are too many?
Ooh, how many are too many? Hmm. That's a good question, Jennifer. I don't know how many would be too many. Um, Here's my opinion. For a debut novel, so I'm guessing this may be your very first novel. I don't think you could have too many. Because if it's your debut novel, I think the last thing you should be focused on is is making money from your first book. So if you have a ton of people sign up to for an ARC copy of your book for your debut novel, and you're going to be giving them that book for free. Yeah, I would, the more the merrier, in my opinion. Now, you may want to, if you're going to manage them more closely, then you have to ask yourself, how many readers can you reasonably manage in the way that you want to manage them? But generally, I wouldn't say that there's too many. I wouldn't say that there would be too many, especially for a debut novel when your focus is really about getting the book out there, getting reviews on it, getting it into the hands of readers. For a debut novel, I think that would be great. You would want as many as you could get. So, good question though. Oh, is it puppy.co, not com?
Yeah, I
Oh,
have
okay.
it up, so
Okay. Yeah, no, sorry about that. Yes, puppy.co. And like I said about that, it on Puppy again, it's worth looking into for some folks. I think it probably is, um, depending on where you're at. I think an ARC team is probably going to produce you better results over the long term, than Puppy will. Puppy is going to some of the examples of reviews I've seen. It's like, did the person actually read the book? Right? Did they actually, right? Are they got your book and sure they bought it, but then they left a review just so they could pick their next book and get more points. And so it can, the quality of reviews I think aren't as great. But you might be in a position where that makes sense for what you need at the moment. So I'm not going to shun anybody for choosing to use it. Right? All righty. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the Q&A here. I do want to drop a few links in here, or rather, while I'm here, let me actually uh just I'll just share this. I'll stop sharing that window. Let's switch over here. So, our BookFunnel authors only group is a spot on Facebook where you can join us for conversations on a whole bunch of stuff, including ARCs and so forth. We post in here regularly as BookFunnel admins. As you can see, a bunch of Emma's posts right here. All right. But we post on a variety of topics, and we've got members in there for you to chat with on a whole bunch of stuff. So if you have questions that you want to maybe get some input from the community, feel free to join us there on Facebook. Just search up BookFunnel Authors Only, and you're free to join that group. And then our upcoming live events. Obviously, we have more webinars coming up here in the near future. We have direct sales next week. Guys, it's January's over already. How did this happen? Right? Direct sales in 2024. This is a repeat topic. We discussed this earlier in January, but not everybody was able to sign up. So we opened up another slot for that. We're going to also be talking about audiobooks on Valentine's Day. We did a webinar on audiobooks recently. We did it last week. We had some technical difficulties with the replay for that webinar, unfortunately. So we decided to host it again so that we can get a better recording replay for folks who needed it, who weren't able to attend it the first time around. We're also going to be talking about organizing and managing group promos, and then also how to multiply your mailing list with BookFunnel, where we're going to be talking about some strategies for you to grow a bigger list. All of that coming up in February. And of course, we have our regular BookFunnel author orientations that we host every Wednesday. So if you're looking to, again, like I said, if you're new to BookFunnel, those are great, or you just need a refresher on the basics, you can join us for those. They're open to everybody. And then our BookFunnel live Q&A sessions, we host those every Wednesday as well, at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Sorry, I'm making some of you do math with that. But if you click, I should mention, if you click on any of these to go sign up, it is going to show you the times in your own time zone. Right. So obviously I'm in Central Standard Time, so it shows me 2 p.m. But if you're in Eastern Standard Time or Pacific or wherever you happen to be in the world, it will show you the time in your own time zones. So, which is pretty useful. But those Q&A sessions are open to anyone who really has questions, and you can get immediate answers from our author support team. We even let you unmute and chat with us for a little bit if you got some questions that you want to chat about, we did that for the first time last week and it worked out pretty well. It was pretty fun. So that will be tomorrow if you want to join us. But I will wrap things up here for today, folks. Thank you guys for joining us. I really appreciate you guys being here. I hope this was helpful for you. When we send out that replay link, there will be a survey link as well that's included in that. You can just give us some feedback. Maybe you thought I did a great job and I need a raise. That's where you give us that feedback, right? To let them know, and Emma as well. All right, Emma could use a raise too, I'm sure, right? Or maybe you thought that I just wasn't very good. The presentation was terrible, right? Whatever your opinion happens to be, we're open to your feedback, so please share it with us. If you have any questions or anything else you want to follow up with us about, feel free to reach out to us at support@bookfunnel.com, and we'll get back to you with any answers to questions you might have. Thank you guys again for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you all next time. Take care, folks. Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos from BookFunnel, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.